Welcome back to Sahara TV. We're still monitoring Nigeria's election 2015 with eagle eyes. And in the studio right now to help us make some assessment as we start collating the results coming in are two special gentlemen who New York City knows very well. On my immediate left, we have Mr. Siddiq Y. Mr. Y is the president of the United African Congress and a special ambassador to the police commissioner of New York. He also ran for the position of public advocate in New York. And next to him, we have Dr. Bola Omotosho. Dr. Omotosho is the chairperson for the Community Board number 5, New York City, and he's also a member of the City Council. Both gentlemen ran for the general elections in 2013, which is why I made that comment that New York knows these gentlemen very well. You're welcome to Sarah Studios, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me start with you, Dr. Omotosho. So far, what have you been hearing from Nigeria?
Well, let me thank you for having us this great day, which is very important. The entire world is watching closely what is happening in Nigeria, and that's why I'm glad that my very good friend here, Honorable Siddiq Y, is here, and thank you for having us both. It's very interesting that strategically, Nigeria is very important to the entire Africa, and even more important to the entire world. Let me just make this opening statement by saying that the election is first of its kind. It's very crucial, and the outcome greatly will impact the entire sub-Saharan region and Africa as a whole, and that's why President Obama, I believe, a couple of days ago, made a wonderful remark and urging all Nigerians, both home and abroad, and to cast their vote. Now, going to the election itself, by now the election had closed in Nigeria. Of course, it's going to continue tomorrow, which is also another new precedent to having to run the election the following day due to some logistics problem, which is good. And I will leave it at that for now.
Let me push you a bit more on that subject, though. So it's a novelty. Now we are going to leave the counting and resume tomorrow. Yes. What kind of assurances are we getting that the polls will be secured till we come back to them tomorrow, that nobody's going to try to tamper with them?
Well, Nigeria, there are several poll watchers. I will not say anything is guaranteed, but more importantly, what is interesting is that all eyes, not only the poll watchers, not only the international observers alone, even those who cast their vote, there have been some preliminary results which have been collated. And with the nature of social media and networking and everything that is out there this time, it will be very, very difficult, unless somebody wants to commit suicide, that will decide that, well, we want to pick up the boat, we want to do this, we want to do some things. Although, yes, you can't rule it out 100%, but I think between now and tomorrow, the watchful eyes, a lot of people will be having sleepless nights, overwatching those wonderful boxes, which the people have done their civic responsibility.
Yeah, totally. Mr. Y, let me come to you now. You are a special ambassador to the Police Commissioner of New York. Advisor, I'm sorry. That tells me that you are quite well versed in matters of security. For instance, Nigeria has a peculiar security problem. How well do you think the security forces have, handled it up to this point?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for the opportunity to come here. Thank my good friend and my brother, Dr. Bola, for he actually threatened me if I didn't come today. He was going to throw me out of the African family, but I said I would be here. I don't know enough about the security situation in Nigeria, but let me just say how things happen here in the United States. Every polling station in this country has police officers there. And the reason for that is that people feel, and the system has been structured in such a way that the officers are there as neutral entities, neutral bodies to see that proper protocols are observed, there are no voter suppression and so forth. And even when the last person casts their ballot, those officers are on the scene, observing that there's no hanky-panky, and those ballot boxes are secured by law enforcement authorities, making sure that no hanky-panky goes on. What we don't know, and considering what the volatile situation that has been happening, and particularly the issue of Boko Haram, we're hoping that doesn't happen, but I'm sure security details, they have done a run through this process, and there are different steps that they take to securing those polling sites, including the protection of the people who come there to vote.
Okay.
So I'm pretty confident that, I'm hopeful that it will be peaceful.
Okay, but so far we've actually received reports of a few casualties. Actually, the bomb blasts have occurred in some places. The president, Goodluck Jonathan, has actually denied that there was a bomb blast in Enugu, for instance. And otherwise, the BBC has reported it. Several other media houses have reported that there was actually a bomb blast in Enugu.
Right. Well, you have to also understand in politics, winning is due to the ability of that candidate to get people to the polls, to get them, his or her supporters, to go to the polls and vote. And when those unfortunate incidents happen, and particularly if the vote is not really going the way people expect it to be, and as head of state, he's now going to get on national media and talk about these problems occurring, because that becomes a problem for people to want to go, because nobody's going to go when they say bombs are going off there. So I don't know much about that, but
how ethical is that, though? How ethical is it to know, for instance, let's assume, without admitting it as a fact, that a bomb actually went off in Enugu, but for the sake of political expediency, you would want to paint a different picture. How ethical is that?
Well, it really also comes to, we have a very, very important fifth estate, and that's the media. It is not ethical for any candidate to deliberately lie or falsify information, and that's why we have a free media. So whether you say it didn't happen, the media, social media is, and sometimes you will see these images on the ground. So even though a president will say it didn't happen, and then you see evidence of the facts speak for itself. Okay. So we're just hoping that the process, like President Obama said, let it be peaceful, and there will be no voter suppression, and let people go about exercising their fiduciary responsibility and rights to pick a leader. You know, that's all we will be praying for.
All right. My next question, I would like a response from both of you on the same question, being as both of you are politicians. Vote buying, for instance, there have been allegations of vote buying. There were prior allegations of the PDP, for instance, spending millions of dollars trying to convince voters to vote for them. In politics, you do need money to win. And some people argue that this is part of what the money goes to do. Dr. Motosho, what's your response to that?
Well, thank you so much. Politics and money go together. You need money in politics to stay out there, to be in the media, to do several things, to organize, and on and on. In the best of scenario, without money, it's very difficult to win an election. Now, Coming back to PDP, as you said, that Nigeria PDP, they used their source of revenue to buy voters' cards.
Alleged $5
Or
million
alleged
to
to
$7
have
million
used it
thereabouts.
to buy voters' card, or to put it in a milder form, to buy people's conscience. In Africa, especially, let's say Nigeria, we do things differently. What special interests use money for here, meaning corporate America, is completely different.
Yep.
Like I said, special interest. We have super PACs. They use their money specifically for certain goals because we call them super PAC and special interest. Now, buying voters' cards in Nigeria or giving out bags of rice or giving out brown envelopes, or whether you call it brown or white envelopes, for people to vote, meaning doing things differently. If they want to argue that, yes, this is their own special ways of doing business, that is another way of doing business in democracy in Africa. But here, you cannot do that. You go to jail. I mean, I ran for office, my brother here ran for office. There are rules and regulations about how you raise your money and what you spend it on. But Nigeria is still evolving, along with several other African countries, that those rules and regulations about how you raise your money or spend your money is still not a clear-cut, there is still not a clear-cut definition. And Nigeria will be 55 years this year. I mean, compared to civilization, which is well over 100 years, we're still trailing. And with the nature of the economy which we have in Nigeria, it's obvious when you have so much money being spent on politics, and you wonder, where is this money coming from? And because of the degree of poverty, which is also prevalent with a population of 140 million, even though we said it's the fastest growing economy in Africa, the poverty level is still very high.
Yeah.
So you can see if the price that is right for folks to sell their, or even accept some basic funding, when it's not social services that they're providing to sell a vote, we still need some degree of education.
We'll get
It's
there.
not about the person giving the money, it's also about the person receiving the money. And the middleman who is soliciting on behalf of the person that, hey, listen, I can deliver 100 votes, give me so much,
Yeah.
and I'll buy 100 cards.
Okay. So there's no guarantee, though, that whoever is taking your money is going to vote for you anyhow. Even though we've heard of all manner of, tactics that they use to coerce you to still vote for them. But,
Well,
Mr. White, same question.
And of course, my brother has already stated, but I just want to add two fine points. When you physically look at our countries in Africa and the information technological ages, we are way behind our time. In the United States, the past election, the Koch brothers, one family made a huge difference. They poured millions and millions and millions of dollars to promote their own candidates, and subsequently they won both houses. So this country, United States, when you look at the power of big monies, for one television advertisement, for 3 minutes, you're talking millions of dollars here. But that is because of this part of the country. But in our countries, you have villages, you have townships where they are not accessible even by car and by road. So people have to physically go to try to get people engaged. Well, is it right that people have to spend money or go to say to someone, I'm bringing a bag of rice for you to vote for me. From the politician, the local politician standpoint, they feel they are exercising their civic duty to be helpful. It is not corruption, so to speak. It is really people who the voters believe carries their message forward, and they are going to be able to help them.
Why then do you need to bribe someone to carry their message forward? If
Well,
that's all you're
I
setting
wouldn't
out
call
to do.
it. I don't necessarily think it's a bribe.
It's a bribe?
It is an opportunity for them to make it easier for that person, giving them the incentive to go to the polls. My grandmother was, in those days, she was the Mammy Queen. I mean, in Sierra Leone. I mean, this is, you are growing up as a child. My grandmother was a Mammy Queen. And the fact that she was a leader in that constituency, the prime minister of the country during times of election used to go to my grandmother. I don't know if she gave her money, but my grandmother in turn had to bring people, give them bags of rice, food. I'm wondering as a child, where is that money
my
coming?
problem there, though, is this. These politicians will disappear after they win the elections. And then 4 years later, or however many years it takes for another election to take place, they will resurface with more bags of rice.
Wow.
The money also that they use for these things are probably coming from
The public. Okay,
kitty.
here's what it, and that's not only a problem unique to our part of the country, even right here. I mean, people talk about that all the time. That once a politician is elected, then out there you don't see them anymore. But you know who the responsibility really lies to? It's us, the people going there to vote for these politicians. You cannot present yourself when you're running for office. You're going to tell the public that you stand for A, B, C, D. But what happens is, once that politician gets elected, the same determination, the same enthusiasm, the same energy, the same challenges that people used to challenge politicians on the campaign trail, they just lose sight.
fizzles out
So
and they
the
just
people,
go to
the
sleep.
politicians now become celebrities. They come there, they come to weddings, and they give a little legislative initiative fund, some funding for some charitable organization. So the politicians, you elected them to do A, B, C, D, and they're ready to do it. But if you don't challenge them, you don't give them proposals, you don't take these issues seriously through an informed public, you have just voted for someone and given them the power and the authority to do just whatever they want to do.
Okay, let's zero in on Nigeria. Let's take President Jonathan as an example. 4 years ago, he convinced people that he is the right man for the job. He got elected. Over 230 girls were taken from a boarding school. We did not see much happening. And then all of a sudden, action. And then, all the towns have been taken back from Boko Haram and stuff like that. Do we really have to come back and prod you to do the stuff that you actually promised that you were going to do, the very reason why we voted for you?
I'll let my brother take that and then I'll
yeah,
follow that.
please.
Let Dr. Bola
Okay.
address.
Good. Unfortunately, any government in power, especially in Nigeria, in the last many decades, have had various challenges with insurgents. This current government do have its own challenges as well with Boko Haram and the Chibok girls, which of course a lot of us have had several marches and speeches to bring our girls home and on and on. Having said that, there is a lot which the government claimed that they were doing, but as a citizen, if you don't see results, as far as we are concerned, they are doing nothing.
Basically.
The girls are still held hostage or kept in isolation or, whatever they've done to them, we did not get them back. It's the responsibility of the government to look after its citizens. especially in a catastrophic event like that. And unfortunately, even after the girls were adopted, several have been adopted,
Again.
running into thousands, again and again and again. Now, what is it that between February 14th, to be specific, and March 28th, right? I mean, today is 28th of March, that you've now done differently, which you had not done before.
Exactly.
With full disclosure on some of these issues, government have many roles to play in people's life. There are claims and counterclaims about the efforts of the government. There are claims and counterclaims about when I say government, I'm talking about central, meaning Jonathan, the federal.
Federal government.
There are claims and central claims about the governments of the various states in the Northeast, where you have these prevalent problems. But the insurgent, it's only when it became crystal clear that this group, they've had so much liberty, and they are now going the route of ISIS, that including United States and the entire world now felt, hey, listen, this should not be happening.
Yep.
So whatever the resources the government has now, everybody now got involved. Cameroonian government got involved. Chadian government got involved. The security that is United States now got much more involved. Now we are seeing results. This is one thing that we need. Forget about government and politics, right? Young girls going to school, trying to educate young girls, and now they don't have a choice. Everybody became intimidated because of a handful of folks.
Yeah.
But now, the entire international community is wide awake that, yes, there's light at the tunnel. With cooperation, with the government stepping up, and collaboration with neighboring countries, we can defeat this group. And that's why we're having results.
Most people think it's too little, too late. But let me move on from that point because I have a few more topics that I want us to cover. Mr. White, President Jonathan went back to these places and virtually serenaded them with gifts. Again, how ethical is this? My daughter is lost, I don't know where she is, and then I get a gift. How do people...
I think the world should understand that despite the fact that our countries and people are poor and people are not sophisticated but they know. A family member knows when they take their child. A family member knows when somebody kills their relative. That does not take any rocket scientist to figure it out. I have faith in our people on the continent of Africa. I'm going to leave it on a political question. The people are not fools. They will do what is in the best interest of that country.
That is a loaded statement.
So I will just leave it at that. And but on a much security process, I'm very happy what Dr. Bola just stated. It's very similar to the Ebola crisis that came. We made it clear to the Western world, if you think you're going to stop Ebola from coming to your country by just closing the border and let the Africans let them die, you're making the greatest mistake. What ISIS, particularly from a security standpoint, you're looking at our countries who have very weak institutions. Some of these countries in Africa don't even have a military to really what a military should be. So the security apparatus of these countries are very weak. These countries become the fertile ground for ISIS and all of these terrible people coming to take over these institutions, training their people, recruiting our young people to cause mayhem. So I think while the West is thinking they need to begin seriously integrating African leaders, African intelligence apparatus in a cooperative venture, not by lecturing to our government or our security personnel, but you need to bring them in.
Of a
They
more
have a
holistic
stake.
approach
They
towards-
know
That's-
the countries, they
okay.
know the geography,
All
they
right.
know the lay of the
I
land.
have a few more minutes in which I hope we can crush this following question. Let's look at the two top candidates, President Goodluck Jonathan and General Buhari. What are their chances? Let's assess their chances. What do you think are their strong points? What do you think are their weak points? What do you think is going to make either of them win or lose? Let me start with you, Dr. Omotosho.
Good. Let me start with the government in power. The current government led by Jonathan, right? There is always that degree of power of incumbency, especially Nigeria, Africa.
Africa, yeah.
And with the power of incumbency, there comes a lot of suppression and stuff that you can do, so many tactics. Now, the people decide. And also, let me flip to the other side. Anytime there is opposition, it's always people driven. It's always people driven, right? At this point in time, General Buhari, I mean, from some of the polls outcome that I've seen, it seems APC have been gaining a lot of ground, indicating that if it's the will of the people will prevail. If the election is fair, and if it's fair, let me just leave it that way. However, nothing is written in stone, especially in the continent of Africa, going by some of the results we've had in African countries in the past. Especially when you want to hold on to power indefinitely.
Okay. That said, though, who do you think has a better chance to win?
Good. Anytime
We're
group
going to
of
make
people
this really brief because I'll have a segment to
decided
round up.
that it's time for change, there is nothing anybody can do. At this point in time, it's a time for change. And that is what is, looming all around. We have a lot of diaspora who went home to Nigeria because of this election. At the same token, the airport in Nigeria was filled with people who are trying to run away. So it's a paradox.
It balances out, I guess.
It's a paradox. You
Yeah.
have folks who are saying, yes, we just want that change, want to be part of this change. Then you have folks who are coming out, we want to be
We
safe.
want to be for safety, I guess.
Yeah, that's why I said
Against
safety.
the backdrop of all that's happening.
Yes.
Well,
Sorry.
I'm going to answer it in the best political way that I know how. Let the better person that the people like prevail.
Okay.
That's my answer.
All right. That's fantastic. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I believe you'll still be available for us to continue monitoring the process until Nigeria decides to maintain its leader, Goodluck Jonathan, or switch to General Muhammadu Buhari. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So this has been Dr. Bola Omotosho. Dr. Bola Omotosho, as I introduced from the beginning, is the chairperson of the Community Board number 5, New York City, and Mr. Siddiq Wai, who is a special advisor to the Police Commissioner of New York. We'll see you on the other side with more. Stay tuned, this is Sarah TV.